Good morning, children. Today in Social Science and Civics, in class 9, we continue the chapter Working of Institutions. We discussed political executive and permanent executive. Now, political executive, just to recall, they are elected by the people or the voters, we may say, for a specified period. And political leaders are our political executives, and they are answerable to the people. We have the permanent executive also. Now they are appointed on a long-term basis. We have the civil servants, like we have the IAS officers, and they are answerable to the government. Now we'll take up the political executive. First of all, we'll take up the Prime Minister, who is the most important in the government. The Prime Minister is the head of the government and exercises all government powers. And how is he appointed now? The President appoints the leader of the majority party or the coalition of parties, who commands a majority in the Lok Sabha as a Prime Minister. So it is the President who appoints the Prime Minister so that he can take the help of his people, his ministers, and he will also have the support of the members. Now we'll talk about the different powers of the Prime Minister. He has wide-ranging powers. Now, he has to appoint his ministers. So, the Prime Minister is free to choose ministers as long as they are members of Parliament. Then, next is that when the cabinet meetings are held, he presides over the cabinet meetings and takes most of the decisions in the cabinet meetings. Then, another important function that he has to perform is he coordinates the work of different departments. Obviously, in the country, there are various departments that are working. His decision will be final in case there is any disagreement between departments. Then, another power is all ministers work under his leadership and general supervision. They are all working, but he is the leader, and therefore he is working as a leader and supervising all other work of the ministers. He can distribute and redistribute work to the ministers if he feels so. The work may be distributed or redistributed also to the ministers. He has the power to dismiss ministers also. So we see that the Prime Minister is possessing so many powers, but of course he will look after the interest of the people and the citizens of the country. Now we come to the Council of Ministers. It includes all the ministers. So the Council of Ministers includes all the ministers. Usually it has 60 to 80 members of different ranks. So this Council of Ministers is working under the Prime Minister. Now we have the Cabinet Ministers. Now these Cabinet Ministers are the top level leaders of the ruling party, and they are also in charge of the major ministries. It is the inner ring of Council of Ministers, and there may be about 20 ministers as such who form a part of these cabinet ministers. Now, further on, we have the ministers of state. We have the ministers of state with independent charge. Ministers of state with independent charge, and usually they are in charge of smaller ministries, and they participate when they are invited to participate in the cabinet meetings. So we have the cabinet ministers, then we have the ministers of state with independent charge, and then we have ministers of state. Now these ministers of state are attached to assist cabinet ministers. So we see that the Prime Minister has his Council of Ministers, which includes maybe 60 to 80 members of different ranks who are cabinet ministers. Some may be ministers of state with independent charge, and there are other ministers of state also. So we see that he has a whole lot of people to help him, assist him, and to be able to take the right decisions at the right time. Now, the appointment of Council of Ministers. How can this Council of Ministers, or how are they appointed? After the appointment of the Prime Minister, which is done by the President, of course. The President appoints the Council of Ministers on the advice of Prime Minister. So, the President appoints the Council of Ministers, but with consultation of the Prime Minister. And usually they are from the party that has majority in the Lok Sabha. So that is how the Council of Ministers is appointed. Sometimes there may be a case when a person who is not member of a parliament, he can become a minister. But in that case, if he is not a member of the parliament, within 6 months, he has to be appointed in one of the two houses. So that is there. So in case he is not a member of the parliament, then he can be appointed as a minister, provided within 6 months of his appointment, he gets elected to one of the houses of the parliament. So we see that this form of government, or what we call it as a cabinet form of government. What is a cabinet form of government now? Naturally, it is not possible for all ministers to meet regularly and discuss everything. So, in order to make it convenient, decisions are taken in cabinet meetings, and parliamentary democracy, as we say, is also known as a cabinet form of government. The secretaries provide the necessary information to the ministers so that they can take decisions. So, we see that the wide-ranging powers of the Prime Minister is appointed by the President, and after the Prime Minister is appointed, then with his advice, the President appoints the Council of Ministers so that the work can go on smoothly, the functioning of the government can carry out smoothly. And for this, we have the Council of Ministers, which are ranging from 60 to 80 members of different ranks. The top level leaders that form the inner ring of the Council of Ministers, who are about 20 generally. So they are known as the cabinet ministers. Then we also have ministers of state with independent charge, but they attend meetings when they are invited to do so. And then we have the ministers of state also. So all these Council of Ministers, the ministers are appointed by the President with the advice of the Prime Minister. So we see that how the government functions and how the Prime Minister has all the powers that he exercises. He is the head of the government and he exercises all government powers. But all this is done because of the people, because of the citizens of the country, and they are answerable to the people. Why? Because they are basically elected. So obviously they are answerable to the people. So that is what we see. These are the major powers of the Prime Minister and along with the Council of Ministers. But if there is a circumstance which leads to the Prime Minister to quit, then the entire Council of Ministers will also have to quit. Thank you.